When we think about the Constitution of India, we think of it being the longest written constitution in the world. We might think of the beautiful, intricately designed preamble, and we think of it more as an official document that is for judges and lawyers and parliamentarians for use during constitutional debates and constitutional cases. But our guest today has taken a very innovative approach to the Constitution of India. She has brought it from these official and definitely intimidating spaces to the playground. In her book, The Great Book of Rules of India, Sakshi Vijay finds a way to explain the key concepts of this great document to the unexpected demographic of toddlers, using running races and birthday cakes and buying ice cream as the backdrop. From a trained mediator and an associate professor at Jindal Global Law School to now author of India's first kids book on the Constitution, Sakshi Vijay is here with us today. Thank you, Sakshi, for being here.
Thank you so much, Giti. That was so successfully put in. And I think a lot of what I wanted to say, you have already told to our viewers, which is great. Thank you so much.
So, first of all, congratulations on the book. It's very innovative. What prompted you to write this book at this stage?
So this question I was prepared for. I have a son, he's 5 years old. And as all 5 year olds, he's curious. And at Jindal Global University, OP Jindal Global University, we have India's first Constitution Museum. And I took him there this February. And enjoyed it. It's a lovely museum. I recommend to everybody, to adults, children, 5 year old, 50-year-old, everybody's going to love it. It's immersive. It's so informative. So he loved everything. But that night when he came back home, we discussed something unusual as a bedtime story. We talked about the Constitution. And then, of course, as a lawyer and a mother, I wanted him to know as accurately as I could put. But given his age, I had to simplify it, oversimplify it. And like you said, it's then I had to use ice creams, birthday cakes. And one question led to the other. If I tell him that India is a democracy, he would ask me what democracy is. And then I tried it on some other children to check whether the message is going across. And these kids are so smart. 5 year olds are able to understand these concepts and so much more. So then I got everything together and that was the genesis.
Okay. And just as you were mentioning in this book, you touch on many concepts, not just democracy. You talk about equality, fundamental duties, of course, and without naming it, even concepts such as affirmative action and right to freedom of religion, freedom of speech. In your experience, how early can kids be taught about these concepts, and how do you level it up as they age?
So I'll answer the first question first. I did check a lot of books before. I thought I have to write it. I was sure somebody would have written it. So I went to a lot of bookstores. I checked on Amazon. So there's another book by Justice Leela Seth, which is for 10 plus. And so, I mean, the work further is probably already easier. But for these little ones, there was nothing. And when I checked the books in the kids section, a lot of bookstores and, of course, at Amazon as well, I saw that the concepts, even more complex concepts, were given, but rather through stories of, for example, this is a story that my son really likes, the Akbar Birbal story. It's a penguin book where they speak about Birbal ki khichdi. It's a concept of fairness where somebody was denied their right because of a whim of a king. And then Birbal puts it across. So this story my son understands. So then, of course, he understands the concept of fairness and many more. So many of our grandma's tales and so many books, religious books, without naming a particular religion, like all religious books for kids. And there's so many of them for each religion. Like they talk about similar concepts, but again, the backdrop is different. So the kids are already exposed to the ideals. And all that was required was to put it in the framework of the constitution for them to know that it's not just through folk tales or through stories, grandma stories, or through religious mythological stories can they know this is also a part of what the country uh, has as a rule, as I put it for them. Yeah.
Okay.
And the second question was, how will it top up? I'm yet to know that. And luckily for me, I'm going to a lot of schools where I'm doing a reading of the book, as many as I can. So For example, when I speak to 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds who are in grade one, the response is different from when I speak to 8-year-olds. So I think the more I do that, I will understand better their understanding. And like, for example, affirmative action in this book is explained through an ambulance,
Yes.
which can cross a red light. And then another student I spoke to day before, and this example was what I was talking to them in their classroom. So intimate space, and they were all very responsive. And he tells me, but can they go through a toll gate as well? Now, there a more complex question comes in, right? So I'm yet to find out how we can make this top it up, like you said. And I think the more I interact with students, because they are the ones who are going to carry it forward. So we need to know what they think and interpret it as how they see it.
Yeah, I think for someone like me who's not used to a lot of children, that's very surprising that their questions are about the next level of it. They're not just able to
Yeah.
grasp this, but they are able to think of the next step of how much further these concepts can go. Do you think schools currently are doing enough to teach children about the Constitution and about Indian laws in general?
So, like people in my age, grown up in 90s, late 80s or 90s, we were taught, and I think that's across boards. I know I have friends in CBSE board. I had some education, some part of education in Orissa, for example. Civics was only that part which was hated by all children.
Yeah,
It was the part where you would have to mug up there how many constituencies in India, for example, and things like, how long is our constitution? I think when I was a student in grade 8, I had to also remember how many articles were there, and how many pages are there, for example, in the Indian Constitution. It is the longest constitution, etc. But having learned so much, I did not know what the Constitution actually said. So the information was useless for me, except for like a question in GK perhaps. And and now I see my son's school, for example, which is an IB school, and they say that they are, their education is very experiential, which is what now even progressive CBSE schools are doing. I think the problem is deeper. It's that their syllabus as such, they don't have a very firm syllabus for such young ones, but there's no impetus as such. Nobody speaks about it. So I think the idea of the book can also develop this conversation. Like, why just lawyers? I mean,
right.
probably our kids know about this because we're both lawyers. They know the word. But why to make it so exclusive? Like, it can be something that everybody speaks about if it's a part of the school syllabus. They can have one day, perhaps they have book reading. Mostly in all schools now they have reading week or library week, and it's fair to have one version of the constitution there for children that's accessible to them. It's written to their age.
Right.
So I don't think it's to answer your question directly, I don't think the schools for now are preparing children or have any discourse around the constitution. I think even till grade 5 they don't. It's only the parents who are more conscious that talk to their children about this. But the problem is not so much with the schools, but also with, like, why is nobody thinking of this idea?
Right.
And this could be a very small step, this book. And yeah, the idea is to just spread the message.
But even I went to a CBSE school in the 90s, and I remember that apart from civics class and one GK class, we didn't have it even in, second grade, I mean, secondary school or high school. It was
Yeah.
just in those two classes, and those were the most boring ones for us. So, should it be mandatory? I feel like, there is this concept that once you make something mandatory for children, they lose all interest. So, is it possible to make this mandatory and still keep kids' attention on it?
So again, I'm answering this more as a parent than a professor, and also as a professor, actually. That it's to tell them how relevant it is. If we tell them that in their everyday lives, for example, my son now thinks that he's a good citizen, kid citizen, because he switches off lights and fans. So he feels responsible. He feels like a young citizen. There's a pledge in here. So he speaks
Yeah.
that, he repeats that, and that helps him. So to make them feel involved, to make them feel that they are responsible for the Constitution as they grow up. This is the document that they will love and which will love them back. That's one way to make them feel involved. First of all, exposure.
Yes.
and exposure in an experiential way instead of asking them to learn up how many rights are there, right to freedom,
Mhm.
this is what it says, or learn up the words of the preamble. I think one smart kid in your class would know the entire preamble by heart, but can you even apply it? So to ask them to apply it in everyday situations, and maybe have like a workbook version of it. One, right to equality. It's a very common sort of a picture now. There are three children standing, or three people, and they need different level heights of
Yes.
support to reach the same. Yeah, so it's something which teaches equality for equals, and like that is something children can understand. And even if not in terms of height, they know in the concept of inclusivity, be it disabled kids, or they are exposed to the world around them. They go on traffic signals and they see that others are not as privileged as them. And then this book is not just for the ones sitting inside the cars. It is for everybody to know that the constitution is same for everyone. So, I mean, it is my very small step to democratize the constitution, and people like you and everybody maybe who's watching can just take it further. There are some lawyers, for example, who are in their home constituencies, I'm not sure if they'd like to be named, are getting copies of the books for all the government schools. So that would, in fact, a lot of people from Kerala are very interested. So, this is how ripples will be formed, perhaps, and the message will spread. To make it compulsory or to go it via schools or NCRT is an institutional step.
Right.
And God willing, that may also happen someday. And I hope that happens someday because the kids need to know. But for now, I think the idea is organically as far and wide it can spread, and for children across all demographics, and for them to know that, oh, this is also something apart from, whatever we've been hearing. This is also another book that we can know about.
True, true. So as you said, there is a gap in the school syllabus for sure, and this can be a sort of a stopgap measure in a way until there's some sort of
Yes.
an official adoption of these books, or creation of more books like this. So until then, are there other resources that parents and teachers, or just people with children in their lives can use to teach them about these concepts? Not just these concepts, not just the concepts in this book, but there are so many other concepts in the Constitution. Are there any resources that can help us do that?
So I have actually been thinking about this, and there are a lot of other books. Like, for example, for kids, one book that I read to my son is for how to explain money to children, and I think that's also a very important concept. So there they would put small activities, like instead of making them feel that you can't go to the mall out of fear that we don't have money, make it like their choice that we can go to the park and play instead of going to the mall, right? Then it then gives them feel like they're making a choice instead of making them fearful that we don't have money. So I am thinking of making such small activities, and maybe that can go in. It's a great feedback, and I also felt it that there's some take backs which can be done in everyday life. And one of those things, and this is because your question is so nice, I just want to put it here, and I'm thinking of more such measures. One thing that I grew up, and I have no shame in admitting this because my parents, despite the best they were doing, one small inequality that used to be there in our houses was a separate plate and a glass for domestic helpers. This was something that was practiced, I think, in earlier homes. And a small step, for example, just to show equality would be to get rid of that in your house. Because everybody is equal, everybody can use the same utensils, for example. I mean, keeping your hygienic measures in place, whatever parents deem fit, I'm sure they'll do that. And more such small steps. Because children, no matter what you do, only learn by example. They can read whatever books you give them, but as long as the parents don't practice equality, inclusivity, all of this in their everyday life, it's very difficult for children to actually learn them. So step one is definitely reading and letting them know of the concepts, but step two is also practicing it at in their everyday, yeah, lives.
Show, don't tell exclusively, at
Yes,
least.
yes,
Tell, but
yes.
also show, I guess.
Sure, yes, yes.
So, what's next for you? Are you planning on writing more books? Are you focusing on the associate professorship? What's next?
A bit of everything. And I'm not at the moment planning on writing another book. I want to, like I told you, grow this book if I'm getting any constructive feedback, like, to have some activities perhaps, and to make it outreach. And for now, I'm not planning, but never say never. And I'm learning so much. It's something to author a book, and that's just the first step. I also have to say thank you to my friend Harsha, who is the illustrator, because for kids, that is equally even more important than the
Yes.
text for children. And so there's so much to learning, in a book. There's such a great learning curve. And of course, I am also teaching 18 to 22-year-olds who are much more difficult to impress. So a lot of energy goes there as well. Um, but this has been my passion to creatively present law to those who are outside the boundaries of law. For example, me and my husband used to do stand-up comedy together around 8 years back for lawyers, exclusively for lawyers. That also just made it light. I mean, lawyers have very hectic lives. So, just as much as fun you can have within the boundaries of black and white. So maybe something I've not thought about it too much yet.
Well, all of that sounds fantastic, even as ideas. Thank you so much for joining us, Sakshi, and spending your time with us. Congratulations on the book to you, your illustrator, Harsha Surekha, and the editor, Shania Rubella.
Yeah.
Congratulations, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Giti. I'm sure through Bar and Bench, I mean, thank you to Bar and Bench for taking this up. And I'm sure this message will spread far and wide. Thank you so much.
Thank you.